Hello, Santa Fe. I'm Carlene, and welcome to Living Santa Fe Through Political Action. Once again, another show we're doing here at Rancho Viejo Park, thanks to Doreen, who has her residence over here. And what a beautiful park we have here. Our guest today is Sarah Guzman,
Hi,
who is running for
Santa Fe County Clerk.
Santa Fe County Clerk. Wow, what a big action that is. Are you a little nervous about it?
No, I think I'm excited. I think that there's a lot that we could do to make the position better and to make the office a little bit more efficient. I think right now we're in a time where there's so much uncertainty, and folks really want to be reassured that there's a process in place, and voting is so critical to our democracy. It's at the foundation of it, and we need someone in that office that really is motivated to make a difference. And I'm that person. Last year, my husband, when we went to vote for the first time, he wanted resources in Spanish, and I had never come across that situation. I thought that they were automatic. I thought that automatically we could access candidate information in English and Spanish, and I quickly found out that was not the case, and I felt that wasn't fair. I thought we were isolating a part of our community that we needed to make sure had that information as well.
Absolutely. I met Sarah quite by accident about 2 weeks ago. I get a call, and it was from somebody talking about the county clerk's office. So I thought it was the county clerk's office calling me because my ballot did not show up, and I was going to talk to somebody about it. So I called her back, and I got to talking to her, and she said, I'm running for office. And I said, you mean you're carrying on a campaign, running for office, and by telephone? And she said, any way I can get
in front of folks,
people,
right,
because
absolutely.
During this epidemic right now, it's difficult, isn't it?
It is. It's been very challenging. In January, when we were still out and about, we could go knock on doors, and that's everyone's preference. But once we shut down, I felt that even more so, folks needed somebody to be calling them, to reassuring them that there was a process in place, everything was under control, and I don't know that anybody else was doing that. And so I filled a role quite by accident, but it's been great, and I think I've felt very it's felt great to have folks that say, thank you so much for calling. If you had not called, I would not know when my ballot was going to arrive. I would not have found my ballot. There's been certain cases where folks had the ballot and hadn't opened it, and it wasn't until I notified them, well, online it says that you might have received it by such and such date, that they were able to find it. And so having that and having them feel it's very satisfactory for me.
Well, it was good to know that you helped me out a little bit by saying, well, you need an affidavit, you need this, you need that. So I immediately got it done, and I got my voting.
That's fantastic.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When did you decide to run for office?
I think it was a couple weeks after that happened to my husband in November. I started thinking about it, and I had a friend that was a political consultant, and I asked him, I said, listen, this is what happened to me. And he said, well, you know that office is going to become vacant next year. And I thought, well, let me think about it. And I thought about it, and early in January, I decided to go for it.
Okay, well, now you have a pretty extended education here. Give me a little bit about your information about your background, your educational background.
Sure. So I have a bachelor's from New Mexico State University. I went to school for, I have a bachelor's in government and a bachelor's in foreign languages with a concentration in Spanish. And then I went to school at Carnegie Mellon University I have a master's from there in public policy and management, which is public administration, only with a lot of emphasis in data analytics. And from there, I went on to work as a management consultant for an international firm. And from there, after I traveled for several years, I thought, wow, this is getting tiring. I really want a place to call home, and so I moved back to New Mexico, and I found a home in Santa Fe. And I went to work for the state legislator for the Legislative Finance Committee and the Legislative Education Study Committee. I went to work for them as a fiscal analyst and a program evaluator.
So you've got a pretty good background in state government, too.
I do.
Did you ever work directly with the Secretary of State's office?
I did not. I have not.
Yes. Well, voting today is difficult. There are a lot of people that are criticizing the way people are handling the voting. Some states are against the mail-in. Some states are against the way the operation, that people can cheat. I'll tell you, how you would ever cheat in New Mexico, I don't know. I don't think you could. Because when I went down there to get my affidavit, I had to fill out a form, I had to give my driver's license, I had to do everything, prove that I had to have a new ballot. And if the old one is used, if somebody decides to use it, they'll catch it right away because they're all numbered.
Right.
What would you do differently?
Well, I think the communication is the part that I think is really lacking. I would have, as a voter, I would have really liked to have had communication early on. In March, when everything was shutting down, my business got shut down on March 19th. And we sent out emails to all of our customers letting them know. I thought, why didn't the clerk's office send us all a letter saying, listen, we are going to, we're going to file a lawsuit in partnership with the Secretary of State and a lot of clerks around the state to see if we can do mail-in ballots. But if that's not a possibility, this is the plan in place afterwards if this does not happen. Voters needed to know those contingency plans, primarily because there's such uncertainty in everything that we want that communication. And I think what I would do differently is just making sure that I communicate with the voter directly all the time. And in a situation like this, that's what I would have done differently.
Okay, now, in New Mexico, we have so many outlying areas. We have towns, little villages that people don't even know about. And the fact that you speak fluent Spanish, that's very helpful for you. How else would you work with people like that? I mean, they might live up in the mountains somewhere. They've never voted. We have a lot of people that never vote because they're either afraid to or they don't know how to. How would you contact these outlying areas?
I really think it's an education piece, and I think it's going into those communities and having a presence. I don't know that that's been something that's been happening, but I really want to advocate for having, not leaving community engagement and community education on voting up to partisan organizations or nonprofits. It really needs to be a task that the clerk's office is charged with, and partnering with other organizations that are already working in those communities and leaders that are working in those communities to ensure that we can have a bridge and a communication bridge to those communities. But I think it needs to be direct. And we have so many modes of communication now. It doesn't just need to be in a written platform. We can call, we can do a robocall, we can send emails, we can send text messages. It's just a matter of making that a priority and wanting to do that.
Okay. One of the priorities is checking the voting machines. Every once in a while they break down.
Right.
And then the scandal starts. How would you check machines? You're going to have one heck of a staff.
Right, right. Um, Now, there are technicians that work on those particular machines to ensure that they're calibrated accurately. There's required testing in federal statute and guidelines that we need to follow. But aside from those protocols, one of the things that I've noticed is that some of these machines have been adding modems, internet modems in them, and so making sure that in Santa Fe County that we don't have any machines with modems, because that's where you get into some of these other challenges with hacking and things like that. And so just being very mindful of the types of machines that you're going to be purchasing once that machine has, the life of that machine has expired. You need to purchase new machines, and you want to make sure that you have a vetting process in place to ensure that the new machines that you're buying don't have modems, fit all of the requirements, all of the federal guidelines.
Now, the county clerks throughout New Mexico, you will have to work directly with them. How does that happen? Do you have special meetings, or do you know them, or how do you get to know these people? Because you have to have contact with them as well as the Secretary of State's office.
So I've met a couple of them, but I know that they do have, they're part of an association, the Clerks Association, and I'm sure that there's a process in place where we meet and we exchange information, and I think that that's very important. And having those lines of communication open and available, I think, is going to be very important, and making sure that we're all learning from each other and that we're all using best practices. And like I said, there's a lot of federal guidelines surrounding voting, and so just becoming familiar with those helps you tremendously.
I see. Securing systems, records, that in itself is a big job.
It is, and the office right now does a great job of having most of those records with paper backups, or if not all of them. The ideal thing would be to also have records that were accessible and that were transformed into electronic records, because we also need to be mindful of the fact that if something were to happen to that building and we were to lose that information, we need to have a system backed up somewhere else that has and stores all of that information. And so having both at this time is critical and very important. So I'm a huge proponent of making sure that all of the documents that we have in paper format, we also need to have in electronic format.
That's a good idea, because I come from the old school. I used to keep all my records, and they saved me many times, paper records, but I was a fanatic about it. Because I know how things can blow up in your face if you don't keep records. Oftentimes machines break down. Your records don't break down. Your brain, well, sometimes your brain breaks down too, but that's as you get older. But so I can see why you would want to keep the paper records too. That's an absolute must. Tell me about your family.
Sure. So I have 2 daughters. I have a 4-year-old who's going to be 5 in a couple of weeks. She's starting kindergarten this year, hopefully. And I also have a soon-to-be 7-year-old that's going into 2nd grade, so Valentina and Victoria. And my husband is Juan Guzman, and we own a small business together. It's called the Pink Giraffe of Santa Fe.
I see. Where were you born?
El Paso.
El Paso.
But we all know that that's part of New Mexico.
Yeah, well, yeah, we own it. You were talking about, how about, but you know that a lot of these kids are coming up, young people coming up. I don't ever remember anybody, well, my parents used to tell me about voting, how important it was, but I don't ever remember really it being taught in schools. You have bilingual students today, and you have students from different parts of the city here in Santa Fe. What about teaching classes?
Right. So one of the things that I really want to work on is is going and forming partnerships with the schools. So not necessarily a formal class per se, but starting with a program. It can start as small as a program. I don't know if you remember this, but children growing up in New Mexico, there was a seatbelt initiative that started, and they started teaching the kids and doing commercials directly to the kids. Remind your parents to buckle up. Something similar to that. So talking to them about the importance of it, taking a voting machine to them, introducing them to the process, and getting them excited. Kids get excited about everything early on, and we can form their passion at 5 years old. And if we can do that and sustain it, then when they turn 16, they'll want to be poll workers, and they'll want to volunteer. They'll want to work on a political campaign. They'll want to volunteer with a grassroots organization. And then they'll vote. When they're 18, they'll turn voting into a habit that they develop. But here in the school systems, we really need to make sure that we expose those kids early on.
These people, these poll workers, they're wonderful.
They are.
How do they get people to volunteer to do that? That's a great way to invest your time if you're retired or you want to do something different. Poll working is a great way to do it.
Absolutely. And and this process requires so many volunteers. It requires a minimum of 5 volunteers per polling location, and so getting folks that are interested is half the battle, and then having them be interested enough to stay for a training, and then to come in so early on election day to participate and give so much is fantastic. And I think the way to continue that recruitment process is really the schools and using teachers as ambassadors to funnel in some of those kids that they already see are interested in it, because the kids in Santa Fe Public School get the day off. They get the day off on election day, and what a better way to spend their day than to spend their day at the polls.
Absolutely. It would be a great intern program for kids. Now, county clerk, what is it, a 4-year term?
It is. It's a 4-year term with a maximum of 2 terms.
Okay. So it is responsible not only for voting, but if somebody wants to get married,
correct,
you can go in and get a certification.
Right.
You get it signed. Or any paper that you have that's a certification, you can take it to the secretary's office.
Correct. Deeds, real estate, land, plots, things like that.
I had a lot of help here, several years ago. I helped somebody do their husband had died, and so I helped them do their estate planning. And we had to work through one of the people through the county clerk's office to get everything verified. And I don't think people realize how much goes on over there. It's not just the voting process.
Right. There's 60% of the job is what folks have said is other than voting. So only 40% of the job is.
I noticed you had a letter. Another way you have campaigned. You wrote a letter to the New Mexican.
I did.
And that appeared in Thursday's paper?
Yesterday. It appeared on their online platform, online yesterday.
And has anybody else done this?
Not that I know of. But I haven't looked today.
I think it's a great letter. And I would advise people watching the show today to look back on that letter. I think you got everything in here that you want to say.
Thank you.
It's very, very well done. So are you getting anxious now?
Yes. Now is the time where I'm trying to reach out to double the amount of voters that I was reaching out to. So I typically set myself a benchmark of trying to reach out to 100 voters a day. And this last couple of days, I want to try to double that.
Do you have people helping you?
I do. I have volunteers, and then we also have some staffers with our campaign that are also helping.
Mm-hmm. What are your future campaign? If, say, you get to be secretary or county clerk, what do you want to see in the future, maybe? Or do you have any ideas about that?
Well, right now I'm really focused on county clerk. Mm-hmm. This is, I'm not a political insider, so this is the first time that I'm seeking elected official, that I'm running for office, and seeking a position as an elected official. Who knows? I want to get through this hurdle and do a great job, and hopefully make people more mindful of who we elect in the future, and I want to work towards changing the electorate. And so if I can do that, I will feel accomplished.
Have you always been interested in politics, or is this something that's come about as you've gotten older?
Well, I think it's something that I've always been interested in public policy, and I've always been interested in how our government operates, and knowing and understanding the importance of the people that get elected. But I don't know that I always thought that I would eventually run for office. I don't know that was a set goal of mine. I think that the opportunity came from really the need. I saw something that I thought wasn't fair, and I thought, well, I need to fix it, and I need to help fix it. And the only way that I thought, or I saw a clear path of being able to fix it, is if I ran for that position, and then I could have a say in how to help bringing that about.
Okay, Sarah Guzman, running for County Clerk of Santa Fe. Tell our listeners why you're interested in being County Clerk for Santa Fe.
Well, I'm interested because I really want to focus on voter disenfranchisement. I really want to create a clerk's office that's working for you and for me and for our community as a whole. Many people feel disenfranchised from the process, and that's not their fault. We have a role to play in that, and I'd like to fix that. So please consider supporting me. Sarah Guzman for Clerk. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you for appearing on our show today. We really appreciate it, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And Santa Fe, keep tuned.